this is the journey of humanity in this experience, a journey truly of our own making. And in this journey, it is said in A Course in Miracles, also by Yeshua, that it is a journey without distance. A journey without distance to a place and a destination that has never changed. And that as we're in our Lenten season here, as we're approaching Easter, one of the pinnacles of our calendar year, the idea of our resurrection, which is a returning home to the divine self as God created each and every one of us as Christ. And so this is our return home, this is our resurrection, and this is our rising. And yet we are on something very similar that's been depicted as a hero, Shiro's journey, where we've come into this experience, if you will, only to find ourselves again, only to come home, only to have experiences that may challenge us, not to take us out, but to help us remember who we are as spiritual beings, to deny that we could be only human. Have you ever said that? I am only human. Hey, I'm only human. Well, around here, we're like, yeah, I don't buy that. Around here, we're like, yeah, you're spiritual first and foremost, which endows you with all power under heaven and earth when you will finally choose to align with the mind and heart of all that is, which is love. And the moment that we only love is the moment we awaken. Because in the very beginning of the book that we're in now, it says, how long is it going to take? And in this community, as B led us, we stood to speak our vision, and our vision is about spiritual awakening. And it says that, hey, it just takes as long as it takes for you to decide, for us to decide to teach only love. And so this idea of forgiveness being our topic perfectly placed during the Lenten season, which is all about forgiving and denying the thoughts that we once held to be the truth of our being, we're saying no. We're denying only that which is false, only that which denies who we truly are as God created. And so this is a beautiful practice that we're engaged in, a practice of release and a practice of embrace, a practice of denial of that which is false and an embracing of only that which is true, truth, reality. So that's what we're up to. What are you guys up to? That's what we're up to here. And so the teaching tells us that, in the reading, so beautifully read, thank you, B, oh my goodness, just delivered perfectly, written and received so perfectly, is forgiveness. And sometimes, oh, yeah, cool. What is forgiveness? It's as if somebody knew what I was going to say. Thank you so much. What is forgiveness? Forgiveness is a process of giving up the false, just what we're saying. We're continuously sorting. Remember, as the wise gardener, we're continuously sorting. No, I don't want to plant that seed anymore. I'm going to release it. I'm going to let it go. Why? Because it's not true. And I already know what kind of harvest I will reap if I plant seeds of negativity, seeds of fear. I already know it. Don't want to experience that anymore. So it's a process of giving up the false for the true, of erasing sin, which sin is simply missing the mark, the archery term. Another way of thinking of it is I made a mistake. I made a mistake. What do we do when we make a mistake? We just pick ourselves up, we brush ourselves off, and we choose again. No judgment. There is no entity called a God that's judging us. Let's get really clear on that. That's a really important concept. The only one who has chosen to judge is me and you, is us. We've done that to ourselves. And it was here, so let's just pause here, please, for a minute, that I want to tell a story. And the story goes something like this. When I was a little girl, I was the youngest of 4 girls. And the sister right above me, her name is Melissa. Melissa's one of the greatest teachers of my life. I love her so much. Now, it was a little challenging when we were growing up. We shared a room together. I felt like we were like oil and water. She was bigger than me. She was older than me. And I remember one day, she tackled me, and she sat right on top of me, and she took my arms, and she was doing this. And she kept saying, "Why do you keep hitting yourself?" And then "Why do you keep hitting yourself? Why do you keep hitting yourself?" And that's what comes up when I think of this. Why do we keep hitting ourselves? Why do we keep making the same things, those seeds that we know what they're going to do, and we plant them anyway? It's just a habit. That's all. And this becomes a season where we begin to really bring our mindfulness and awareness to what are we planting. We're still in the practice of every hour for about 3 to 5 minutes, just pausing, as we do here. We do it all the time. We take that breath, we release, and we become aware. What is the experience that I'm creating right now? And am I judging? Am I judging it? Or am I accepting it? I used to work out at a gym called Planet Fitness. Anybody work out there? I loved it because their color was purple. And it was, I like purple. I liked it even more because it was at a time when I first started to work out with free weights, and I was a little intimidated by it, but I was really intimidated, especially by, the big guys who had been doing it for a while and were bulked up, and, they'd lift the weight up, a huge weight, and then they'd drop it, and it would reverberate, and I'm very sound sensitive, and I would just it just scared me, but they had this thing. And right where the free weights are, it said judgment-free zone in purple lettering. It was like, oh. I'm like, I'm going to go work out over there. And the judgment-free zone was this idea that we don't make a big deal about our, the weights that we're, I'm lifting more weights than you're lifting. It was a judgment-free zone. And I suggest that when we come into this sanctuary, that we enter into a judgment-free zone and we practice that. And I think we do. I think we do a pretty good job here. I love this community. A judgment-free zone. And that we begin to carry that out into our lives. Because giving up the false for the true means that we're giving up our judgment. If we're just aligned with truth, with equanimity, with peace, with love, we begin to cultivate the awareness that anything that looks different than that, my friends, is a call for forgiveness within me. And if we truly live in a reflective universe, that forgiveness is like intending to extend only love. And we're extending love. That journey without a distance to the destination that never changes, that journey home, the hero and shero journey that we're all on. You know, we think it's to a place called heaven, or we were conditioned for that, but heaven's within us. The Master said this. In the way of mastery, he clarifies. Not only is heaven within you, it is you. And it's contingent every time we choose love. And that becomes the messenger that we send out in the world, rather than projection of fear. So, we're giving up the false for the true. We're erasing sin, our mistakes, and error from the mind and body. As the reading said, when we judge, it constricts. They say that the basis of every disease has to do with inflammation. And what does inflammation do? It negates spaciousness. It takes it away. It causes a constriction within the body so that it cannot freely move. We were meant for movement. Take it from somebody who has not moved her body in particular ways for a large part of my life, and I'm just now beginning to dance. We had ecstatic dance here. Look for that in the calendar. Come here and move. Move the body, move the mind, move the soul. We're not meant to be rigid. We're conduits of energy, and it must flow through us. We create that spaciousness every time we forgive. And we forgive when one ceases to sin or to miss the mark or to align with fear. These are all saying the same thing. True forgiveness is established. We renew the mind and the body with thoughts and words. One more, please. And it is through forgiveness that true spiritual healing is accomplished. So that is what forgiveness is, and it's as simple as going back before we ever gave a judgment. Before we gave a judgment, we go back to the beginning. Back to the beginning, God. Back to the beginning, God consciousness. And so last week we kind of talked about our life just as it is and just as it isn't, as being the perfect ashram, the perfect holy pathway for our very own awakening. We don't need to go off somewhere, though we can. But from the moment we arise in the morning until the moment we arise, we're in our own curriculum. We're in our own pathway of awakening. Gosh darn it, if 1,000 times a day that ashram isn't kicked up with, last week I talked about every one of us has its own obstacle course, and it's perfectly designed for us. And on that obstacle course, we bump into little challenges. And gosh darn it, if there aren't 1,000 times a day for this opportunity to be disturbed, right? It's a good quote. Yeah, we studied that quote this past week in the class that we're doing on Wednesdays. Yeah, there's thousands of opportunities to be disturbed. And instead of going, gosh darn it, this is where we go, goody, goody. This is my time for awakening. This is my opportunity. Because if I'm disturbed, there's something within me that is calling for forgiveness. There's something within me that's calling for healing. And so that's the ashram, just reminding us of that from last week. And so we've talked about forgiveness and how forgiveness actually works, that it creates a spaciousness. I kind of like the reading because it talks about how forgiveness clears the pipes, so to speak. And I was thinking, forgiveness is like liquid plumber. You know, it just clears us. Or another thing I used to use in the past, anybody watch My Big Fat Greek Wedding? And the patriarch and the family, everything that is positive in humanity is attributed to some Greek in history, somebody who was Greek or some Grecian culture. And this guy, he loved Windex. And he used Windex on everything. Like if you had, a sore on, he'd come up and spray Windex on you. So forgiveness is kind of like Windex, and it's kind of like liquid plumber. It's something that works every time we engage ourselves with it. And it's always for us, and it's always about releasing forgiveness. Since we're at the time of year I want to share a story with you. And I've told this story before. If you've heard it before, forgive me. Please don't judge me. It's a good story. It's a teaching story. And it's a story that I use when I talk about forgiveness, when I talk about projection. So in this story, it's a personal story, or at least it sounds like one. In this story, I've been working really hard, and I have a day off. And on this day off, I have the perfect plan for my day. On this day off, it's going to be a sunny day. I'm going to go by the pool. I know my favorite spot with my favorite book. And I'm going to unplug from the world. And I go about and I do this. And I'm in my lawn chair. And it's a beautiful day. I can feel the sun upon my skin. The water is nearby. If I get too hot, I can just take a nice little dip in the pool. I've got my book. I've got my little drink next to me. I'm all set. And as I'm reading my book, I begin to doze off. You know, those kind of half awake, half asleep, dozing off. You might be experiencing it now. That's okay. I got no judgment on it. Okay. So half asleep, it's just one of those just yummy places to be. And then all of a sudden you feel like there's a splash on me. And I'm like, what the heck? What was that? Well, I'm just going to ignore it. And then it happens again, and I kind of hook into it, and I start thinking, what's going on? Who's not behaving? Who's disrupting my peace? And I don't open my eyes, but I create a story about it. And it keeps happening until the point where I'm upset and I'm angry, right? And I just kind of put the book down, I open up my eyes, and what do I notice? I notice that there's somebody drowning in that pool. Somebody is flapping, which is causing the water to splash out. And in some way, they're in need, and they're crying out for help. In my semi-conscious state, of my judgment state, of my not coming into mindfulness and awareness, I prejudged, I judged. I wasn't available to myself, and I wasn't available to the person who needed love, needed attention. But because I'm embarrassed, okay, this is just a story, okay? This is just a story. I usually forget to say that part, and people will come up, Rev, what happened to the person who was drowning? You never talked about them again. I didn't talk about them again because the story up to this point is about my projection. my projection and how it takes me out, and how then I am not available. And can you imagine if there really was somebody who was drowning and I didn't help them? I would feel guilty. But I might, one of two things. I'd either feel so guilty I'd just be a pathetic, sad sap for the rest of my life, or I might conjure up a story about them because I feel guilty and I have to blame in order for me to feel okay. Now let's shift gears. Let's shift gears to that person who's in the pool. Imagine that you're standing in a pool of water. It's about this deep, waist deep, okay? And imagine you've got this big beach ball. Imagine that this beach ball represents who you are. Let's see. Let's see the next slides, please. This beach ball represents I am as God created me to be. I'm a perfect, holy child of God. I am loved and beloved. I am Christ. I am spirit. I am unlimited. I am free. I'm here to love and to extend love. What's next? I'm made in God's image. I'm always a creator. I am free to create what I am here to create. And it's according to the heart's desire. What's next? I am perfectly free at all times. One more, I think. All I experience has been my choice, and at no other time has there been any other cause. This is that beach ball. But through our conditioning, we deny that we are as God created us. Through our conditioning, we think, oh, I can't be who I really want to be. I have to be a certain way in order to be safe in this world. According to conditioning, that's what will keep me safe. And I start suppressing who I am. So I'm taking this big beach ball and I'm pushing it underwater. And I can pretend for a while that I'm okay. But to deny who we are is so painful, my friends. To deny the creativity that wants to course through you. To deny the gift that you are here to give. And to think you need to be something other than that in order to be safe, to prosper, and to be happy and joyous, it kills our soul. Does it not? And so we've pushed it underwater, and we might appear okay. We might put on a good face, but it only lasts for a little while. And what's going to happen? In a moment when I'm off balance, maybe something's happened in the world or in my life. A person has transitioned. A job has changed. Something happens. I'm off balance. Boom! That beach ball's going to fly right on out, and it's going to hit one of you guys. And it's going to hit you right in the face, just like my sister hitting me in my face. Why do you keep hitting yourself? And so the person who was drowning wasn't drowning because they wanted to disrupt your peace. They're drowning because they're in pain and they're calling out for love. But we think, the lawn chair girl thinks they did something to us. Then they feel guilty. And the beat goes on, and the beat goes on, and the beat goes on. Sonny and Cher, maybe? Yeah? And the beat goes on. And you look at the news, that's the beat that's going on. And forgiveness takes us back to the beginning. Before we gave a judgment, 70 times 7, the thousands of times that we've been disturbed in our lives. Pause. What am I to forgive? What am I judging? It's okay to keep choosing. once you bring it to your awareness, it'll lose its appeal over time. 70 times 7. 70 times 7. And we just keep practicing until we return to the beginning, God consciousness. Pause and take a breath with me. That was a lot. But that's the story we're in. And this is the call that we've said yes to. And so therefore, this is our journey. Moment by moment, breath by breath, where can I release my judgment? Right now. Right now. Right now. Moment by moment by moment. What else are you going to do? I mean, seriously. What else are you up to? That's why we're here. And so that's what we're doing. I'm so very excited to have an intensive that will go through the process that is taught and that we'll go over next Sunday too. But if there's an experience that you want to bring forward to really practice this deeply, we'll start on Thursday and go Saturday and the next Tuesday, part Zoom, part in person. But I can't do it in a Sunday service, but I can lay the foundation for it. I can hopefully inspire us along this pathway, and that we can pause throughout our day and one by one, moment by moment, release our areas of forgiveness. Now, there's one story that I'm going to conclude with that I thought was important enough. It's a real life story, not made up like the one I just did. So do you guys ever watch TV shows? Yeah, I'm saying yes. So there's one I've been watching lately, and it's called Shrinking, and it's on Apple TV. And Michael J. Fox, who has Parkinson's disease in real life, plays a character with Parkinson's on the show. And there's a bonus reel if you go and look at it. And I feel like he is walking our path. And I thought you might be able to relate to this. So he's talking about Parkinson's and having Parkinson's. And he says, this shit's hard, and it's unfair, and it's boring. You never get ahead of it. Ever feel like that in your life? Something's happened in your life, or you have a challenge that feels like this. He goes on to say, it teaches you acceptance, it teaches you tolerance, it teaches you compassion, and it teaches you resiliency. You take it and you learn from it. There's a dark side, but there's a light side too. And it's about humanity. I never thought Parkinson's would take so much from me as it would. And I absolutely had no idea how much it would give. So much to me. And it has. It doesn't dictate your life story. I'm still here. That's an obstacle. I bet there's 1,000 times to be disturbed in that experience. And it's still filled with light and with gifts. Just like your life, your perfect ashram, just as it is and just as it isn't. It's your perfect pathway home. And forgiveness is the way. I love you, I bless you, and I thank God for you. And next week, we're going to listen to how Jesus forgives and how we may change our forgiveness story to be like his. Namaste.